Alright, welcome back to another one of these YouTube thingies I've been doing for my class. What we've been discussing this week has been Family Secrets by Annette Coon, which I have right here. And it's pretty much, and I hate to say this, Annette Coon realizing through some photographs so far, different aspects of her own youth and childhood, parts of where she came from, as well as who her parents, as well as discovering who her parents are through the pictures themselves, such as examples of her father being a semi-professional photographer through the fact that he was a that he's that he's one of the old-fashioned door-to-door photographers that would go to your house and take pictures of your children, or the fact that she discovers her mom living vicariously through Annette as a young girl to recapture the childhood that her mother did not have. This is exemplified on page 51, and I shall read a small little section from that. It was in 1916, and our dad seemed to have been away forever. But one day during the summer holidays, when we were playing on Moor Mead, a girl came running up to us and said, "I think your dad's come home. A soldier went in your house." Without waiting to hear the last of what she was saying, I was on my way home, my bare feet hardly touching the warm pavement. There in the kitchen was my dad, sitting in the armchair near the fireplace. I wanted to climb all over him, but before I could reach him, he said in a very stern voice, "Where's your shoes? Put them on at once." Which Annette, years later, relates to the fact that this could have been clear to her that this was her mother's love for the Immaculate, which is why she tended to dote on the baby Annette more so than she did with the um, grown up Annette, I should say. And without getting too further into that, I shall go endeavor into the subject of today's discussion, which is where Annette Coon discovers, like I said earlier, through her own path by using photographs. And she outlines this in several different points on page 8 in the book, where she says, consider the human subjects of the photograph, consider the picture's context of production, and consider the context in which an image of this sort would have been made, as well as consider the photograph's currency and its context or concept of reception. Now, in order for me to accurately discuss this, I did indeed have to go digging through my own family photographs. So what I pulled out here, I have one photograph to discuss here, is an image that was taken, I'd say about almost 20 years ago, so it's a dated photograph. And, well, not really dated, as there's no real date on the photograph itself, so it can only go by vague familiarity. But anyways, what I have here is a family photograph taken when I was probably about 6 or 7 and my brother was 3 or 4 on a trip to Disney MGM Studios. And as you can see here, this is definitely very old because this is when they had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles attraction, which was removed from the park in 1996. I shall show it again so you can get an accurate detail of it. When I brought this image to class yesterday and talked about it, I had to skim over several points while leaving out several others. One of the things I forgot to mention is that it's indicative of where me and my brother, who, one more time, he's the one here with the Raphael mask, if I can go ahead and zoom in on that, my little brother. It's indicative of the characters that me and my brother both liked. Growing up, we were both fans of Ninja Turtles, and I was a fan of Leonardo, and he was a fan of Raphael. And if you can see, and again, in the placement of who we're sitting next to, this is indicative of those two favorite characters. It's also indicative of the fact that, for me, in the context of the picture, I see a relationship that me and my brother no longer have, which is at the same time saddening because as we grew up, we grew apart, so we no longer have that close familiar relationship that one would expect of most of their family members. And I suppose that that's kind of what Annette Coon was getting at too when she discusses her own images, such as when she goes on to talk about this picture of herself on Coronation Day. she has made context to it. She has made context to it as she was very either ill before or after the picture was taken. So she mentions a tightening in her chest, being very uncomfortable, not just with how she was dressed, but just general physical discomfort is attached to this one picture. What I remember about my own picture taken here is that it was either the spring or the summer, and coming from a background of being ill a lot of times myself, I do not feel that same sense of being sick or basically uncomfortable with how the picture was taken because I'm the one, like I said, I'm the one leaning against Leonardo in the picture here. That I don't know. I just feel very comfortable whenever I look back at that picture, and I suppose that a lot of that comfort can come from not just that I didn't have a poor relationship like she did with her parents, or the fact that it could be that I like the surrounding I was in. I was in very comfortable clothes. I don't know what it is, but I suppose it just goes on her point that we do add a lot of ideas and ideas and memories connected to a picture, and it elicits to us in our future selves when we look back at these images from the past, memories that can still stick with us. And let's see, with Annette Coon in particular, she does bring up a good point about um, the memories promised by the family photography industry are characterized by pleasure and held off closure, happy endings, happy middles, and no endings to all the family stories. Now, unfortunately, there's no real particular story attached to this image, other than for years I thought it was at Universal that this picture was taken until recent research led me to discover that was actually at a different park. And basically, that there aren't really any interesting stories to tell that are connected to that particular image, which I suppose at the same time is boring, but it still stimulates my fulfillment studium at the same time when I look at little details and remember not just the image, but also the memories that could be attached to the image that aren't really directly related to the image itself of my brother and myself as children, or the parks we did used to go to a whole lot because it was always an annual family trip to go to Orlando, to go to Disney World, Universal, or whatnot, or Busch Gardens, or Wild Adventure. I hope I managed to illustrate this point clearly. I'll see you next time.